everybody. This is Good Morning Transfers. Pep Guardiola made the shock revelation at the weekend that Kyle Walker has asked to leave champions Manchester City. So, has he played his last game for the club? We will take a look at his next possible destination. Arne Slot speaks to the media this hour as Liverpool prepare to face Nottingham Forest tomorrow night. Arsenal's issues in front of goal continued once again. Do the club have to act sooner rather than later and sign a striker? And as ever on a Monday, we are joined by YouTuber Manny Brown for his take on all the big transfers. Hello, Manny.
How are you?
Of course, it's not just Manny. We need a real team here as well. We've got Molly Stevens, Flex, Kweku Ufari back as well. And hello to all of you watching on the Sky Sports YouTube channel as well. Let us kick off with that surprise story of the weekend at Manchester City. It was a real bombshell, wasn't it? Pep Guardiola revealing that Kyle Walker wants to leave the club. Now, Flex, we have had this situation slightly before because in 2023, there were discussions about him potentially leaving to go to Bayern Munich after they won the treble. But judging by Pep's comments this weekend, does it sound like this really could be the end of his time at Manchester City?
I think so. I think especially with the public nature, with Pep disclosing exactly what Kyle Walker had asked for, which is to leave the football club. And Pep Guardiola is not going to disclose that information to us so freely, so readily available, if that isn't what's basically going to happen. I think also from a playing perspective and a form perspective, I think Kyle Walker has shown some signs of slowing up. It's taken an awful long time for him, to be honest, to show some signs of slowing up. He's been an absolutely brilliant right-back, one of the best this league's ever seen. I know the emergence of Trent and the emergence of attacking fullbacks, but with what he's done for club and country, he's a fantastically decorated player, super fit, absolutely rapid, and looked like he just was showing no signs of slowing down until the Euros and until now. I think it's really evident. So I think with him actually saying he wants to leave the club and Pep Guardiola confirming that coupled with performances that we're looking at and saying, this isn't the Kyle Walker we used to see him, I think now probably will be the time.
And I think clearly there's been a niggling feeling there for a while with him. After the treble, to then ask to leave, you can almost understand from a winning everything at the club perspective, maybe that was in the thinking. But even more so now. Yeah, exactly. You've been at the absolute top with Manchester City. But now, when they are in the doldrums at the moment, it seems that they're going through this reset. Will this sort of kick-start a reset for Manchester City where Kyle Walker leaves? There needs to be an influx of new players. There's big changes there anyway. Might this be the time? But Pep Guardiola's made it quite evident, hasn't he, that he's convinced him last time, but he won't convince him again.
It's quite interesting to see where he might go as well. It seems like there might be a battle of the Milan clubs as well, because we're having conflicting reports. For example, the Sun here saying that Kyle Walker being lined up for a sensational loan move to Inter Milan, but lots of other outlets are hearing that it's going to be AC Milan who might come in for Kyle Walker, although they have a slight issue in that they can only sign one more non-EU player, which would conflict in terms of if they want to get Marcus Rashford as well. They might have to choose between Walker and Rashford. So Molly mentioned that, you know, the situation for Man City right now. Are you slightly surprised by the timing that this hasn't come in the summer? Because it feels like it's a time for Manchester City, you know, all hands on deck at the moment. They need to make sure they finish in the top four.
If Man City were in Liverpool's position, in terms of in the midst of a title race, then the discourse might be very different. But we're all aware that Man City are in rebuild mode right now. They're a side that have been the best in class for the last 4 or 5 years, winning 4 Premier League titles in a row. But it's clear that it needs to go again and Pep Guardiola needs to rebuild this side. If you look at Kyle Walker's numbers as well, you mentioned there's been decline. And it's been incremental decline, but when you're at the very top, that decline is very evident. We've seen it in his duels won per 90 from 3.32 down to 3.16. Interceptions also down from 0.88 to 0.28, which is a big decline for someone like Kyle Walker, who his game is predicated on that knack for intercepting, that knack for being in the right place at the right time, and also using his pace and ball recoveries, which is his bread and butter. It was 4.94 last season. It's now down to a 4.28. So we've seen in all the defensive and offensive numbers that they're decreasing. And I think for Man City, it might feel strange because January is a difficult time to do business, but we'll move on to how many players they're looking to bring in. I think that Pep Guardiola's goal this season is to consolidate their place in the top four. And with Kyle Walker and some of these Asian players, if you can move them in January, it means the business you have to do in the summer is less frequent and less. It'll be less dramatic to the build of the squad.
Yeah. OK, well, we're going to hear what Mannys has to say on this Kyle Walker situation. But first of all, let's remind you what Pep Guardiola said on Saturday night.
Kyle has to explore the options to play abroad at the end of his career. Said that I want to explore my mind and my heart, and I want to be another to explore it. And honestly, I don't know what's going to happen. For that reason, I prefer, playing other players like his mind is here. That's all. The top class player is fit, because if he's fit in mind in there, can play 1, 2, 3, 4 more years as a professional. Because I never see a player with these physical conditions in my career. I think I was clear for all the time. If you want to explore, the club is going to explore, and he has to decide, not me.
Really is massive news that Kyle Walker has expressed that he wants to leave Manchester City. And Manny, we've got to get your take on it. As you can see, Manny's take. What is your take on this? How much of a big blow is it for Manchester City to lose Kyle Walker, especially in January as well?
I think if it was Kyle Walker at his best, we wouldn't be having this conversation. It's as simple as that. But we can see, like Quaker was saying, we're seeing him slowing down a little bit, the decline. It could be on the cards, but I think, personally, he's ready for a new challenge. I think he's reached his limit. He's won pretty much everything there is to win. So maybe it's the time for him to move on, try a new challenge. And Pep said he's got a few years left in him. I believe that, but maybe not at Manchester City.
Well, you know what? You talk about everything he's won. He is very highly decorated. Just the 6 Premier Leagues, just the 2 FA Cups, just the 4 League Cups, just the 1 Champions League, and so on and so on. I mean, how do you replace somebody this decorated, this experienced?
I feel like it will take a while. It'll be a big hit to City to lose another player with a lot of leadership and credibility in the dressing room. Rico Lewis has a lot of versatility as well, so that could be something that they might not be looking to put him in at right back because he's so useful elsewhere. So it will be difficult, and it might take a few seasons. And
just actually, before we throw back, I want to ask you, how many years do you think he does have left at the top? Because, when you see top players like this, they start regressing in their metrics. And as Kwaku said, they're small incremental changes, but they're significant given how good Kyle Walker has been for his career. Is it an MLS 5? Is it just go to Saudi and dwindle out? Do you think, how high can he still play?
I think he's still got a few years, maybe Champions League level. It might just be in a different system and a different team that is now accommodating for now how he's going to change his game. But I feel like he's still got a few good years in him.
I think that's going to be really interesting to see for me because, I've been a big backer of Kyle Walker in terms of how well he's played for how long, especially for England as well. And then you looked at the Euros and you just thought, it's probably starting to creep in now. Well, we'll see exactly how this one pans out with Kyle Walker saying that he wants to leave Manchester City. Where will he go?
Well, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it, Flex? We want to hear from you guys as well this hour. Should Kyle Walker leave Man City? If he does, where should he go? Where would you like to see Kyle Walker? Where can he add value? Or should Man City do everything they can to keep hold of him? Get involved on X, post your views and use the hashtag GMT. So hashtag GMT, what do you think about the Kyle Walker situation? Should he stay at Man City or should they let him go? And where will he end up? Don't forget, you can keep across all the latest information as it happens on our dedicated Transfer Centre blog. You can scan that QR code there, and that'll take you right there, right now. OK, Manchester City are actually the most active club at the moment. Let's quickly update you on the various situations that they have at the moment. Abdul Qadir Kusanov wasn't in Lens' matchday squad yesterday after they accepted an offer worth £33.5 million plus bonuses. The club are also, we've been telling you, working on a deal to sign Eintracht Frankfurt's Omar Marmoush. That could be one of the big deals of January. And they are holding talks with Palmeiras for the defender Vitor Reis. So they are active, Kwaku. If they get all three, does that solve a lot of their problems, do you think?
Hayes is one for the future. In terms of players that can come in now and affect it, Marmoush is the one we're looking at. If you look at his statistics at Frankfurt, he's a player that gives you output in terms of goals and assists. It's interesting, though, because seeing Julian Alvarez score the winner for Atletico Madrid yesterday against Osasuna, you wonder, despite the fact that they recouped such a big fee for a player that was valuable to them, could they not do his services right now? You look at the position that Marmoush takes up, primarily down the middle, but can also play off the left as well. And so I think he's a player that can come in and affect things straight away for Man City. If you look at Kusanov, though, having talked to Kev Hatcher last week, he says he's a very good player. He's young, he's imposing, but in terms of the ball at his feet, he still needs to do some work. So I don't know whether
that surprised me, I must say, when I heard that.
It was interesting because we expect Man City to go and rebuild in this January window to bring in players to make an effect this season. But Kusanov is a player that might need a bit of time. And if you look at Man City signings under Pep, they do take a bit of time. Think about Jack Grealish, took a season to settle in. Even players like Gundogan, it took a while to settle in. So it's an interesting window for Man City. But I'm looking at Marmoush as a player that a lot of teams have been looking at. He's very talented. He's good on the ball. He can bring that spark that Man City have been missing, and also help Haaland. He's their only goal getter, really. And Man City have been struggling in that department. So in terms of this January window, I think Marmoush is the one. But if you look at a team historically, your team, Manchester United Flex, when they brought in Evra and Vidic in that January 2006 window, nobody expected them to come in and make a difference straight away.
They initially struggled as well.
But long term, they were a huge part of that rebuild. You were in a three-year drought in terms of winning the Premier League title, and they came and changed the face of the club. So hopefully for Man City, these players can come and do that. Whether it's this season remains to be seen.
Well, look, these three might all be very good signings. We've got two young centre-backs, Marmoush, who can offer going forward in a lot of different positions. None of these players, though, Molly, are a defensive midfielder. Is that not the position, the Rodri replacement, that needs sorting out first?
Yeah, this is what baffles me, to be honest with you. How can City be the most active club, yet not have anyone linked to them that is a central midfielder, a defensive midfielder? I'm really surprised at that, particularly given they rarely do business in the January window as well. To be linked with three is something, but none of them to be a replacement for Rodri, when clearly there's a glaring hole there in the squad, which is so integral to the way that Pep Guardiola plays. I'm baffled by that, because Rodri is, without doubt, the biggest miss for City this season.
And they have been active, haven't they? So if they do sign these three players, you're looking at, 120, 130 million combined.
Yeah.
They never do this in January in Manchester City. Does this highlight how concerned they are about not finishing in the top four?
Absolutely. It shows their intent and their sort of attention to the position that they're in, and that they're not happy with it. It's as simple as that. And I think they have tried an awful lot of different solutions and internal solutions of different ways of solving the problems that they have, and they haven't quite managed to do it yet and click into gear. OK, the last couple of games, they look like they could get a little bit of calm there. But then also, I think Pep's looking at it in terms of, can I freshen things up and give an extra boost for the next part of the season? Because Manchester City, if they don't get going, they might not even make the top four. Which, you look at what Newcastle are doing, Aston Villa are there or thereabouts as well. Chelsea are not going away anytime soon. Forest are absolutely there. A couple more wins for them, and you're looking at a title race for them until it isn't anymore. And that's how seriously you have to take this. The Premier League is super competitive, and I think for a team who's just won 4 on the bounce, to sort of look at it and say, we have no divine right to just find solutions here. We need to go into the market. So I think it shows strong intent from Pep Guardiola that he's tried a few solutions in-house. It hasn't worked. And to go and get, like, say, someone like the player of Omar Mamoush's quality in this January transfer window shows real intent from Manchester City. And they're not just thinking that they can just get players of old that would just bounce back. Oh, don't worry, Rod will be back. We can be... No, he's out for a long time. Don't worry, Kevin De Bruyne will come back and sort... No, it's not happening at the moment. Kevin De Bruyne has had his injury time out as well, so really struggling.
And you've mentioned, the last 4 seasons in particular, but also players like Kevin De Bruyne. We've already talked about Kyle Walker. We were looking at it last week. The last 4 seasons, the maximum amount they've spent, Manchester City, in a season, in a January transfer window, is 14.5 million. Now, you're talking 3 players that they're rumoured to be, linked with at the moment, over 100 million, absolutely. Could that even stretch to more if they're looking for a central midfielder as well? And the point that we've already made about Kyle Walker, if he leaves, if Kevin De Bruyne is out of contract, you know, this is the start of a complete new Manchester City under Pep Guardiola, where Champions League is so important.
It's needed.
Could be the start of the big refresh,
Absolutely.
couldn't it?
Really needed.
We'll be busy the whole of January. This is the part I wasn't really looking forward to. Unfortunately, we've got to reflect slightly on the game yesterday at the Emirates. Dramatic
I'm keeping
game.
you apart, you two. I'm keeping you
You
apart.
don't have to, but if you want to.
Well, we might as well. Yeah, come on. You know we have to. Right, Arsenal squandered several big chances yesterday, didn't they, as they were knocked out of the FA Cup by Manchester United. This is what Mikel Arteta had to say about potentially signing a striker this month.
We missed from various ways, from different players, and I understand, guys, that, but I cannot love our players more, and I very much focus in the ones that we have to perform at the highest level. That's it. The rest is not in our hands, in my hands.
OK, well, as we saw yesterday, Kai Havertz is dreadfully out of form. He's missed 3 big chances now in the last 2 games, plus, of course, missed a penalty in the shootout. The Jesus injury, we don't know, but it doesn't look great, does it? You know, the way he came off, hopefully it's not a serious knee injury, but it could well be. When you have those 2 things at the same time, do you think that will be the thing that pushes Arsenal finally into the market for a forward?
Yeah, it should do. But before those 2 things happen, even before the Bukayo Saka injury, if you ask Arsenal fans, what do you need to do to strengthen? What do you need to do to go again and try and win this Premier League title for the first time in 21 years? They would all universally tell you they need a striker. And I know Kai Havertz is going through poor form right now, but it's not time to denigrate him. He is not a striker. He was originally brought in to be a number 8. And then things happened and he ended up playing up front for them and he did a decent enough job. But if you're relying on Kai Havertz to get you 20 Premier League goals, then you need to look in another place because he is not that. He didn't show that at Chelsea, he didn't even show that at Bayer Leverkusen before that. He is a player that occupies similar positions to Martin Odegaard and he can go and get you goals, but that's not his primary focus. So Arsenal do need to bring in a striker. They needed that in the summer and now there is a post-mortem on Arsenal summer. If you look at the players they brought in, Mikel Moreno, did they bring in the wrong Sociedad midfielder? He's a good player in his own right, but is he what Arsenal needed? You look at Raheem Sterling, who was good for Arsenal against Manchester United in the FA Cup, but is he the player that they need at this stage of his career? And then you look at Calafiori, who is injured at the moment, hasn't played enough football, and look at defence in terms of centre-backs, that's their strongest position, I would say, Arsenal. So I think that Arsenal do need to reinvest in the January transfer window, but how many times have you seen it in Premier League history, a team go and spend money in January to go and win a title? That business is normally done in the summer. And so Arsenal are now chasing, they're playing catch-up, but they're still a very good side on the face of it. They've still got very good players. And if they do make the right moves in this month, there's no reason why they can't push up to the positions that they want to in the Premier League. But right now, there's no doubt about it. Arsenal need the front
Here's
man.
a question for you, though, Flex, because Joby McAnuff, who's an Arsenal fan, said this on Sky Sports News yesterday. And I was listening to it and I thought, OK, that's an interesting view. He said, look, if Arsenal can't get Alexander Isak this January, and it's going to be very hard to get him, let's be honest, it's going to take a big, big bid. If Arsenal can't get him, they shouldn't get anyone. And they should just wait until the summer and then go all in for Isak. Do you think that's a viable option? But the problem is, if you do that, you're not kind of saying, well, we're going to write off the season.
Yeah, you're essentially. I think Arsenal fans deserve more than that. With the planning that should have been done and the praise that the likes of Eddie was getting before he's left the football club, alongside Arteta and other people who make the decisions at Arsenal, with the praise they were getting and adulation they were getting, this to me seems like poor planning. This has not been a problem that has just reared its head because of a couple of injuries. Like Kwaku said, Arsenal have been in need of this type of player for a while. So I think Arsenal fans will be. While I see where Joby's coming from in respect to wait for the one you want, but at the end of the day, they've had players like Trossard come into the football club in January to help give people a boost, and it worked in that moment, in that time. There's value out there in the market. Kvaratskhelia, I understand he might be going to PSG, etc., but was available. Victor Osimhen, there's something that could be done. Vlahovic, who Arsenal were chasing only a couple of years ago.
Kvaratskhelia, the kind of player Arsenal should be looking at?
I don't see why not. A top-level attacker, but right now, that would give them a boost in terms of the player that he is, but it's unrealistic. They just have to get a forward, a striker. They need somebody who is going to you know, they're going to be able to bank on hitting the net more times than not, Molly. And it's been really, really difficult for them. But Arsenal fans won't buy this because at the end of the day, this has been something they've needed for a while.
Yeah, and I think Arteta's made it quite clear, hasn't he, in his latest press conferences as well, that he is looking for the one. So similarly aligned, actually, with what Joby McAnuff is saying, he wants the striker. And we all know how difficult it is to find the striker that you want. That is going to be so difficult for them. I think Kvaratskhelia, I'm going to get this right.
Well done.
Kvaratskhelia would have been absolutely... Between Liverpool and Arsenal, I would have expected them to tussle between themselves for him, to be honest. But it looks like he's going to PSG, as you say. But the Jesus injury yesterday just further emphasised that need for a striker. As you say, it's been lingering over them for seasons now. And Kai Havertz just quite clearly isn't hitting those heights. But Bukayo Saka being out, sort of, they're lacking that creativity there with him missing. How Kai Havertz can be Arsenal's top Premier League scorer with 7 goals is staggering, really. It's just the most glaringly obvious problem Arsenal have.
We're going to talk more about Kvaratskhelia later in the show, actually, with regards to Liverpool. And by the way, I think we're all looking for the one, aren't we?
Yeah.
It's not just us. Yeah. We're all looking for the one. OK.
If that makes you feel better, then yeah, we are.
Yeah, it does actually a lot. I found the one. Loads on the way. We'll bring you Arne Slott's news conference. Plus, Marcus Rashford, he's still a Man United player. Find out if Ruben Amorim thinks he's played his last game for the club, though. Welcome back to Good Morning Transfers. We will bring you Arne Slott's news conference shortly, but it's an important 6 months ahead for Liverpool with the futures of Trent Alexander-Arnold, Mo Salah and Virgil van Dijk all unclear. Football journalist David Lynch believes Trent's situation is the trickiest amid the interest from Real Madrid.
I think the problem with Trent and what makes it so different is it's kind of either or at the moment. There isn't that clarity there. He hasn't come out and said that he wants to do it, but equally he hasn't said that he wants to stay at Liverpool. So, you know, there's just that kind of openness to the whole question. And I think that leads to some of the anxiety that fans are feeling. It makes it a trickier situation for him to deal with. It creates a completely different perception to the other 2 players who are coming out of contract as well. So I think the fact that both paths are open to him is maybe a situation he wouldn't have minded a few years ago when he signed a 4-year deal. I think this possibility was kind of open to this happening. As soon as your performances drop, then there's going to be a reaction to that. So, yeah, it's a tricky situation. And as much as there are the outside factors that I think are not Trent's fault, I think he's also part of it. So it's a really interesting one, I think.
Right, we'll be hearing from Arne Slot later this morning. But what about Manchester United? We're still waiting for news on Marcus Rashford. But last night, Ruben Amorim said he wasn't sure if the forward had played his last game for the club or not.
Marcus Rashford obviously wasn't part of the squad today. Is it likely he's played his last game for Manchester United?
I don't know. We'll see. He's a player for Manchester United. We'll see. He have to work. He have to represent his club. And he loves this club, but I have to make choices. Already spoke about how I make the choices, so it is what it is. So let's continue. Let's see the next game, and like I said, I have to make a selection.
So Ruben Amorim himself unsure, Flex, whether Marcus Rashford has played his last game. What's your gut feeling? What's the feeling amongst the fans? Do you think you're going to see Rashford in a Man United shirt again?
Yeah, in my opinion, I don't think we will. Not this season. You can never say never in the future. You may secure a loan and it might not go well, and all of a sudden things change in football very, very quickly, even though that's unlikely in my opinion. But I think for the rest of this season, I think he'll secure a loan move away from Man United. And Ruben Amorim saying, I'm not sure, I don't know. Again, I think that's down to the business of football, because as I've said many times, and many people talking about Rashford's potential departure from Man United have said, it's a difficult deal to do economically. You're looking for clubs across Europe to subsidise substantial wages of the best part of his £300,000 a week, which is not easy. Not many clubs can do that in January across Europe. And with Saudi not being an option for him, that needs to be considered and limits the amount of destinations he could possibly land at. But do I think he'll secure a move somewhere in this window? I think he will, but you never know in football as well. It's also possible that the economical climate didn't really allow for it to happen, and he couldn't really secure a move, which would leave a bigger problem for Manchester United. Then he would have to be reintegrated into the squad, in my opinion. So, but I think he'll get a move in January.
Well, Manny, the early noises are probably suggesting that it's going to be Italy if he goes anywhere. AC Milan interested. There has been some other interest from Italian clubs, including Como, which would be very interesting, you know, if they came in and said, we're going to pay for all of Marcus Rashford's wages, because no one else has said that so far. Is it a guarantee, though, that he's going to go to Italy? Can you see a Premier League club or two coming in for him and throwing a spanner in the works?
I think the thing is, you never know. We've seen it recently happen with Sancho. We've seen it happen with Sterling. So it might not be off the cards. Obviously, Rashford is a big Manchester United fan, growing up like that boyhood club. So would he want to go to maybe like an Arsenal? We're here in West Ham. I don't know, but I think there is a possibility there. It's not out of the question. But like Flex said, it's up to the financial side of things as well. Will the Man United hierarchy want him to go to a rival? Or if the finances are right, can he go?
That Arsenal one's really interesting, though.
Yeah.
With what's happened to Jesus.
Can you imagine Sterling and Rashford at Arsenal on loan?
Last minute, dying hours of transfer deadline day. Rashford, do you want to get here? 6 months loan, no obligation. I tell you what, I wouldn't 100% discount her, but I'd just, on a personal, I'd just like to think that Rashford would just want to clean break, get out of the Premier League. Get out of the Premier League.
that would give us a lot to talk about, wouldn't it? Rashford at Arsenal. Right, so if he does go, then they have to think about replacements, don't they, Man United? PSG forward Kolo Muani, Randall Kolo Muani, remains a player of interest to Man U, although Sky and Italy are reporting that Juve think they are in pole position, and AC Milan are also interested. So the Italian clubs are really active at the moment, early in this window. He sounds like he would be tough to get because of all that competition. But is he someone who could improve their goal threat?
Yeah, not forgetting the competition actually from Tottenham potentially as well. They're looking for someone who can strengthen their front three, and he's definitely someone, Kolo Muani, who can play across the front three positions, help Dominic Solanke out a little bit. But yeah, from a Manchester United point of view, I think they've been interested in for a long time, actually. Back when they got Rasmus Højlund in, they were interested in Kolo Muani there. So clearly there's been a long time admiration from the club for him. He scored 2 goals in 10 games so far in Ligue 1 this season. Mind you, most of them have been largely as a substitute. He's averaged around 0.67 goals and assists per 90 minutes, which isn't too bad when you consider that he's coming off the bench more often than not. But I think more than anything, he can offer speed and strength on the ball and leave defenders sort of trailing behind him. That's the idea. So yeah, he could be a good fit for Manchester United. Whether or not he will provide all of the goals they're looking for, I'm not so sure. Plus, as I say, plenty of interest out there between Tottenham, AC Milan as well, and Juventus,
Possibly
of course.
more will come in, you never know.
Yeah.
I should just say, another bit of news from Manchester United is that the 17-year-old left wing-back Diego Leon is in Manchester for a medical ahead of completing his move from Cerro Porteño, a young Paraguayan player. It's expected that he will then go back to Paraguay, join United in the summer, so probably one for 2-3 years' time, the left wing-back Diego Leon. Right, we'll be hearing from the Liverpool boss Arne Slot very shortly, and we'll be discussing Chelsea. Could we potentially see 3 players leave? Stay with us. Welcome back to Good Morning Transfers. Time now for a transfer update. Napoli boss Antonio Conte has revealed that Kavica Kvaratskhelia has asked to be sold amid interest from Paris Saint-Germain. Liverpool are also keeping track of the situation. Sky Italy are reporting that Juventus are looking at potentially signing the Chelsea centre-back Axel Disasi. The 26-year-old signed for the club for a £38.8 million deal from Monaco in August 2023. Crystal Palace have triggered Romain Esse's release clause in his Millwall contract. Valencia have agreed a loan deal for the Bournemouth right-back Max Aarons, despite him playing 45 minutes in their FA Cup win over West Brom. Everton are in discussions with Lyon over Ernest Nuama. Aston Villa have increased their offer for the Borussia Dortmund forward Donyell Malen. Fenerbahce are making some progress in talks to sign Diego Carlos from Villa in a deal that could be worth around £10 million. MLS side Atlanta United have submitted a bid in the region of £18 million for the Middlesbrough striker Emmanuel Lattelat. That's according to Sky in Italy. And staying with the Championship, Burnley have submitted a bid for the Plymouth Argyle forward Morgan Whittaker even. It is understood that Burnley's bid, though, is not close to Plymouth's valuation for the player. And if you miss any of the show, you can scan the QR code that you see on your screen there for all the latest video content available on the Sky Sports website, and there will be plenty of it. Right, what about Chelsea? We haven't spoken much about Chelsea. What's going on so far this January? We're used to seeing them make plenty of signings, aren't we, in previous windows? There could be a few departures in this one, though. Sky Germany are reporting that Borussia Dortmund want to sign the left-back Renato Vega, while Carney Chukwuemeka is also on their transfer shortlist. Now, Quake, you had last part off, mate, so in this part. Yeah, we're saving you for Chelsea. Thank you. Do you expect this window to be more about outgoings than incomings for Chelsea?
I do. Although Clear Lake have shown that they're opportunistic when it comes to transfer windows. And I'll take my mind back to a couple of transfer windows ago where we were only talking about Chelsea, January 2023, when Chelsea brought in Mudryk and Enzo Fernandez and spent a lot of money. And so I expect Chelsea to focus on outgoings because of how big the squad is. A lot has been made of that. But if there's an opportunity to strengthen, then trust Chelsea to go in there and strengthen. In terms of these players, Renato Vega and Carney Chukwuemeka, it's interesting with Renato Vega because Chelsea brought him in the summer from Basel, and all indications was he was going to have a big part to play in Chelsea's first team. His primary minutes have come in cup competitions, whether it be the Europa Conference League or the League Cup. But he's a player that's very well thought of at the club, and from just seeing him play football, I expect him to go right to the very top. I can understand why a team like Borussia Dortmund are interested in his services. He does primarily want to play as a centre-back. For Chelsea, he's been utilised as a left-back. He's played in centre midfield. The only Premier League game that he started for Chelsea this season was against Bournemouth, and he did play in centre midfield and played very, very well. He's a player that's very young, and I think he will improve over time. And he reminds me a little bit of Nathan Ake. Nathan Ake was in Chelsea's books as a youngster. He had to go away to re-find himself, and he's a top Premier League defender right now. I expect that same trajectory for Renato Vega. As for Carney Chukwuemeka, he's a different sort of player. He's a centre midfielder that likes to get forward, was very good for Pochettino in the pre-season last year, but got injured against West Ham at the beginning of the season, a game that he scored a goal in, and never really been able to regain or re-find his form. Was very surprised when Chelsea brought him in from Aston Villa. He was very well thought of at that club, but I think it's time for him to make that move and go and find a place where he can play regular football. Enzo Maresca's talked quite publicly about Carney Chukwuemeka and the fact that he does need to go and play football if he wants to develop his career, and I expect him to leave in this January. But Renato Vega is the one that really surprises me because he's a very good player.
A few of my Chelsea fan friends have said the same about Vega. They want him to stay. But it is Chelsea, Molly, right? So would we be surprised if they weren't associated at least with one or two big names possibly coming in? And if so, what areas do you think that they could look to strengthen?
I think centre-back is the most obvious place at the moment. They've been a little bit shaky, let's say, since Wesley Fofana's injury, and I just think they need a bit of reliability there. Marc Guéhi has obviously been mentioned as potentially coming back to the club, although Oliver Glasner has said that no one has knocked on his door at Crystal Palace to say that they want to leave, and he is the club captain. So I think, gosh, if they're not obviously in the relegation places right now. They are 4 points clear of the bottom three are Crystal Palace. But if the club captain was to leave, that wouldn't look too good, would it, for the rest of the season? Levi Colwill has been playing so well. He's a left-sided centre-back. Marc Guéhi, a right-footed centre-back. So you'd think that would make sense, but Marc Guéhi potentially prefers to play on the left, which would be a bit of a clash there. They're just such a young squad, Chelsea, at the moment. They clearly need someone with a bit of reliability, a bit of leadership. Guéhi has the leadership from Palace, from England. He's definitely matured in that sense. But whether or not he is that experienced leader who is a solid, right back, really. I'm not sure he is, but I think centre-back is definitely where Chelsea need to strengthen.
Could be recalling Trevor Chalobah on loan from Crystal Palace. You never know. Chalobah was left out of the FA Cup side. Oliver Glasner said it was a contractual situation, so that is worth keeping an eye on. We do have some breaking news for you right now, though. It concerns Leicester, and they are closing in on the signing of Parma right-back Woyo Koulibaly. The framework of a deal has been agreed in principle and negotiations are in advanced stages. Koulibaly is a 25-year-old who can also play at left-back. Leicester also want to sign a left winger and a centre-back if they can. So Leicester making moves on this deal with Koulibaly. Right, stay with us because we will bring you Arne Slot's news conference very shortly. Plus, we've picked out 4 players that could be seeking a move away this month. Welcome back to Good Morning Transfers. We are taking you back 3 years because on this day in 2022, Chris Wood left Burnley to join Newcastle in a deal worth £25 million. He was the club's second new signing under the new owners, but a year later, he was sent out on loan to Nottingham Forest, where he went on to become a permanent player. They bought him last summer, and what a signing that has proved to be. He is ripping it up right now, Chris Wood. Next up for Forest, it is Liverpool. And let's go there now and hear from their boss, Arne Slot. He's just spoken to the media.
Arne, just to start with, check on team news really. Joe Gomez and Darwin Núñez, the only 2 absentees lately. And how far away is Joe at the moment?
Quite far. He's definitely not training with the team yet, and Darwin is suspended. So those are the 2 we will miss tomorrow.
What sense is there when it comes to this game that, well, do you see Forest as title contenders, and therefore how decisive a moment could this be in your season?
I've always said that you can judge the table best halfway through the season, and that moment is there now. So if Forest is then up there with us, with Arsenal, Chelsea and City and all the others, then they definitely are a team that's in competition with us and with the other teams, and they deserve to be treated like this if you look at the way they play, if you look at their results. Yeah, it's going to be a very difficult challenge tomorrow to get a result.
Obviously they can close the gap between yourselves to 3 points at the same time as well. What sense is there that maybe you owe them one for what happened at Anfield earlier this season?
I think they already showed in retrospect how good of a team they are. Leading up to that game, I think they had 2 draws and 1 win. So that's why in general, I think every time when Liverpool loses a home game, that is something we don't expect. I think in that moment of time, I also saw the stat that Virgil played 100 home games for Liverpool, only lost once. So for us to lose then on that day was for me hard to take, as you probably experienced. Now looking back at it and seeing where they are in the league, it's not as been such a shock result as I thought it was back then. So they had a very good game plan, changed the wingers that normally played and brought them in the end, and they made a difference. So although I expect their wingers that have done so well to be in the starting 11 tomorrow, is that something he changed back then, and that worked really well for them during that game.
Given the players that you've got available now and the fact that you've got a couple missing for a game like this and very few injured at the moment, the way that you've managed the players, how much of an advantage do you think that will be now going into a really busy period when you see a lot of Premier League clubs around you that have got a lot of injuries?
Yeah, but that is also there's also this moment. 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, or 2 months ago, or in 2 weeks, things can be totally different. But it's definitely helpful for every manager everywhere around the world to have all your players available, and that is what we almost have at the moment, and that's a very positive thing because we play so many games, and not only us, all the teams that are in Europe here in England play a lot of games because there's a League Cup and an FA Cup to be played in as well. So then it helps if they are available, but yeah, you can't compare all situations together. Some teams have squads that are even bigger than us. Some teams don't have a squad that's bigger than us, but the teams we are in competition with, of course, they would have loved to have all their players available. But there are also teams that have a lot of players in their squad. But ideally, like I said, you want to have all your players available. That's what we are having at the moment. Let's hope that almost all of them, we can continue going like this.
And in terms of having seen some of the young players play at the weekend in the FA Cup game, how excited are you by the next crop of young players that are going to be coming through and you'll have at your disposal in the future?
That's very important for every club, but especially for this club. I think I said it after the last League Cup game, not in Tottenham, but the one before, that this club always brought talents through the ranks. Is that the way you say it? Yeah. And it's nice to see that, again, there are a few youngsters that are having impact already in our training sessions, but like you saw in the game Saturday, also during the game, with Jadon scoring, with Rio having a good game, with Trey assisting to the fourth goal that Federico made. So it's always nice because it gives also good energy in the building. If youth and academy players train with us, do well, play with us, do well, that gives nice energy in the team as well.
Slot just speaking a little bit earlier. Now we've got a quick line into us regarding Southampton and Sheffield United, because they are favourites to sign Southampton striker Ben Brereton Diaz on loan this month. There'll be a return to Sheffield United if that happens. We also asked your guys your opinion on where Kyle Walker should go. Johnny says, exciting times in Milan. Both clubs have such rich histories and passionate fan bases. As for Kyle Walker, he's had an impressive career. Luis says Inter need him most. Interesting. Zele, as a few others have said, says he should go to the Saudi Pro League. Right, we're going to talk now about some players who might need to seek moves because they're not playing on a regular basis. And we've picked out 4 forgotten players. We're going to try and get through all of them. Ben Chilwell, Jakub Kiwior, Miguel Almiron and Evan Ferguson. Right, let's start, Kwaku, with Ben Chilwell. It doesn't seem to have a chance of featuring in Enzo Maresca's plans at the moment. Could he still do a job for a number of Premier League sides?
He could definitely still do a job. And like you say, he's not in Enzo Maresca's plan. He's played one game this season for Chelsea. That was off the bench in the League Cup. He doesn't feature. And the thing about Enzo Maresca, he's very public with the players that he doesn't see having a future at Stamford Bridge. He lets you know in press conferences. He's a player that I can see doing a job for a club like West Ham. At points this season, we've seen Wan-Bissaka have to play left-back. Obviously, Emerson's their first choice left-back. I think Ben Chilwell's an upgrade on both of those players. And if he can find a home at London Stadium, he's definitely got a chance of breaking into that England team, because what manager's in charge? Thomas Tuchel, the manager that was in charge of Ben Chilwell when Chelsea won the Champions League.
Yeah. All right, let's get through this, guys. Come on. I get Miguel Almiron, Flex. A similar question, really. You know, he's fallen out of favour, and he was going really well for a while, wasn't he? Surely a Premier League side would look at him. I know he's got MLS interest, but look at him and say, look, he can help the side out.
Yeah, I mean, he's got bags of experience, over 200 games for Newcastle. He's 30 years of age now, and in the season where they finished 4th, he probably had his best season. I think it's a return of 11 goals and 2 assists in that season. And those famous comments from Jack Grealish as well, and look how he went on to perform. So, but Newcastle seem to have kicked on. He's fallen out of favour. But like I said, Premier League experience. If you look at one of the newly promoted clubs, potentially could come in for him. But I think it's probably going to be a move away from the Premier League for Miguel Almiron.
OK, 20 seconds on Evan Ferguson. Manny, where should he end up?
I've seen a lot of talk about moving to West Ham. That could be a good move for him. They'll be in need of a striker, new manager, new chance to do something fresh. So he could go there.
Yeah. Molly, agree?
Yeah, West Ham or Bournemouth, I think.
Yeah, Bournemouth.
Both needing strikers. So I think, well, particularly with West Ham now, Nicholas Füllkrug injured over the weekend, Mikel Antonio as well, and Jarrod Bowen. So and Graham Potter loves to work with young players, develop young players.
I'll do Kiwior. We're running out of time. I don't think he did much wrong when he was playing for Arsenal, to be honest with you. I think he could do a real job at centre-back. He can play left-back as well for a number of Premier League sides. But I think there's interest in Italy from him because of his history there. Thank you very much, guys. Well done. We got through all of it. Thank you, guys, for watching as well. Don't forget, we're back for Transfer Talk. And we have got Kev Hatchard coming for us at 12. So we're going to talk about all things European football. We'll see you then.